We are going to be demonstrating how to score the visual motor integration section of the PDMS-2. And the first step in scoring is to calculate the child's chronological age. So this test was conducted on May 8th of this year, 2023. And Claudia was born on June 7th of 2018. So when you do the quick math, you get these numbers here. And for the sake of this scoring example, we are going to say that she was not born prematurely. So her corrected and chronological age is 4 years, 11 months, and 1 day old, which comes out to 59 months old. And so now that we have her age in months, we know to begin the visual motor integration subtest at item 63 because she falls into this age range. We've already inputted all of the scores here on the side. A score of 2 indicates that the child performs the item according to the criteria specified for mastery. A score of 1 indicates that the child's performance shows a clear resemblance to item mastery, but it does not fully meet the criteria. And a score of 0 means that the child either cannot or will not attempt the item, or their attempt does not show that the skill is emerging in the child's abilities. So also, because they scored the maximum score of 2 in the first 3 items of this section, we know that this item 63 is the basal point. And because she was actually able to complete the entire subsection, there is no ceiling. But if she were to score zeros on 3 items in a row, for example, she scored a 0 here, but if these 2 were also zeros, then we would stop the test here. So in order to calculate the raw score of the visual motor integration section, we're basically just going to be tallying up all of the scores for all of the items. So because item 63 was the basal entry point, we can assume that Claudia would also score 2s in items 62 and previously. So let's do 2 times 62 plus, and then she scored 2s in 7 of the items that we tested. And then she scored a 1 in 2 of the items. And a 0 in 1 of the items, which just equals 0. So calculating all of this together, that equals 140. So her raw score in the visual motor section equals 140. So now that we have our raw score of 140 for the visual motor subtest, we are going to demonstrate how to calculate the total fine motor quotient of the PDMS-2. So if we remember, there are 3 quotients that can be calculated from the results of this assessment. There is the fine motor, the gross motor subtests, and then the total motor quotient, which is a combination of both the fine and gross motor subtests. So the fine motor quotient is calculated using a combination of the visual motor subtests and the grasping subtest. First, we are going to start by writing down our raw scores. We know that Claudia scored a 140 for visual motor integration, and let's say that she scored a 48 for grasping. So we're going to take the raw scores of grasping and visual motor integration to Appendix A to calculate her standard scores. From the grasping column, we're going to go down and find 48 as the raw score. To the left, you'll see that her standard score is 8 and her percentile rank is 25. And then the same for visual motor integration. We're going to go down the column and find 140. Her standard score is a 13, and her percentile rank is an 84. Going to move on to Appendix B to calculate the quotient. We are going to do that by adding together the standard scores. So 8 plus 13 equals 21. So going over to Appendix B, we are going to go down the fine motor column and find 21, for which her quotient equals 103. Next, we are going to go to Appendix C to calculate her age equivalency in months. So in the grasping column, because her raw score was 48, her age equivalent in month is 46. And then for visual motor integration, because her raw score was 140, which is actually down here, we can see that her age equivalency is 71 months. Next, we are going to move on to Appendix D to calculate the z-score. So we know that her quotient was 103 when we combined the two standard scores together. And moving to the left, we know that her z-score is 0.20. Next, we are going to interpret the scores using this table. She scored 8 for her standard score on grasping. She scores average in that category. And because she scored a standard score of 13 in her visual motor integration section, she was above average for that category. To interpret the quotient, we are going to use this table. She scored a 103 for her quotient, which means that she scored average for her overall fine motor subtest of the PDMS-2. So let's go over the scores one more time. Claudia is functioning at a 46-month-old level for grasping skills and at a 71-month-old level for visual motor skills. She scored a 25% for grasping, which means that 75% of kids her age performed better than she did on this subtest. And she scored an 84% for visual motor integration, meaning that 16% of kids her age performed higher than she did on this subtest. When both subtests are combined, her quotient of 103 indicates that she has an average level of functioning in her fine motor skills. And that is how you score the PDMS-2.